Welcome to our classroom. I'm Coach Dawn.
I'm Coach Angela.
And today we're going to be talking about manicuring. So we're going to be talking about manicuring, what the importance of manicuring is. We're going to be diving into some deeper information just about why the skin is important to manicuring and what that scope of practice is. We're going to talk a little bit about massaging on today. We're also going to have a demo on that, so be sure to like this channel, subscribe to get every notification.
Yes, that means ring that bell.
Ring that bell, and make sure that you talk to us in the comments.
Why is manicuring important? It's the foundation of all nail services.
Foundation of every single service that we do. And when we talk about manicuring, manicuring is the basic nail service for every service that you're going to do. It's basic prep for nail technicians as well, because when you're performing a nail enhancement, you have to prep the nail for that service. So your basic manicure is going to be the prep for that.
But we do want to go over the scope of practice, especially in the state of Texas. Some people get a little confused on exactly what you can do as a manicurist.
What you can do as a manicurist is, the basic thing that we're doing is beautifying the nails and the skin, okay? And the skin, we're talking about from the fingertips up to the elbow. And then for the feet, we're talking about from the tips of the toes up to the knee. We don't want to go beyond either of those points. So then we're also talking about what all that we can do as far as the scope of practice. Now, this is for a nail tech in Texas. For other states, sometimes they allow you to do a little bit more as a nail technician.
Or a little bit less.
Or a little bit less, just depending on what state you're in. So you always want to make sure that you know the guidelines for your state. But for the state of Texas, we are allowed to do things such as coloring the nails, tinting the nails, trimming the nails with nail clippers, using cuticle nippers to trim away the cuticle. And we're also allowed to attach false nails, which we call nail enhancement. So we're going to get into the anatomy of the hands.
And don't stop now, like don't skip through this, because this is really important information. It is really key when you understand that you're dealing with people's bodies. And it is important to know how they're all connected. And Coach John used the term a funnel. So like, let's explain like how this whole funnel works when we're dealing with the anatomy of definitely the hands.
We're not going to use the technical terms today because those can get a little bit tricky.
And I probably don't know half of those words anyway.
Me neither. So what we're going to do is we're going to break it down for you in much more simple terms. When we talk about the anatomy of the body, we're going to think of the anatomy of the body as a funnel. And the biggest part of that is all of the body systems, where we're talking about the lungs and the bones and the skin and the nervous systems as the biggest part, the big wide open mouth of the funnel. And then as we start to narrow it down, then we narrow it down to just the skin portion. And we start to dive into those contraindications, the diseases, the disorders. And then we narrow it down even more to the part of the body system that we're physically going to be doing our services on, which is
your
the
hands.
nails.
Yes, yeah. And then two, I think all nail technicians should be estheticians, because they think that they're just dealing with nails, but it's really the skin.
Yeah.
That you have more, because when you're working on the cuticles, the massaging and making sure the beautification of the hands look, it comes from the skin. But definitely the skin is the biggest organ.
The biggest
organ. And that is really where we want to talk about the anatomy section. When we are working with the skin, we have the acronym SHAPES. And the first part of that is going to be the sensation. Your skin has a level of sensation when you're working on the client, so you want to be aware of that, and also put that in, like ask that question in the client consultation. Just like if they're sensitive to products, or if they're allergic to something, that's going to cause sensitivity in their skin. And as far as products that you're using, like nuts, I know we have like an almond spray that you want to make sure you ask people if they're allergic to, so they don't have that sensation. The other one is heating and cooling, which is the H. Our body has a level of where it can cool itself off, and when it heats up, it can definitely cool itself off. When I get hot, it's like your body starts to sweat.
And when you get cold, you're sitting here freezing.
And you get those goosebumps.
The chills.
So the skin is absolutely amazing. Let's talk about absorption.
Absorption. When you're using a product, you must do that client consultation. It's really important to find out if your client is using any type of medication, because this is going to be the one that comes into play. If they're using any type of transdermal medication, it is very important. It is crucial to know what you're putting on top of that. Oh, because even if your client comes in and they're perfectly fine and you put something on top of a transdermal medication, it can cause a world of problems for them, especially if what you put on top of that transdermal medication, they may have an allergic reaction to. So it's really important to do that client consultation and just get that information from your client. And they're not always, like, clients don't always give us all the information. Sometimes they're just really protective of their privacy, and that's okay. But it's really good to give them an opportunity to tell us so that we can be better prepared for their services.
And you talked about protection, and protection is the next one. Skin has a level of protection, and it has a level of chemical resistance protection. So you want to make sure that you're wearing sunscreen if you're going out, and that's going to help the skin, as well as, like Coach Don talked about, the products that you're using. It can resist chemicals, but then it also has like a contact time when you're dealing with contact dermatitis.
Absolutely. A lot of times when our bodies are exposed to something, we just naturally, the skin is going to protect us from whatever it is that it can determine that could possibly harm us. But on the flip side, it allows our bodies to absorb things that it knows will help us too. And so that's why when you rub lotion on, you can go ahead and rub it in, because the body's going to be accepting of it. But we also, again, protecting ourselves and protecting our client, we have to remind ourselves and our clients, like, let us know if you're allergic to anything, because the same way that our body is receiving of those things that will help it, if you put something on it and it can't determine, then it will go ahead and accept it, and then that's where the allergic reaction comes in. And one of so the next one is excretion, and there is a difference between the last two, excretion and secretion. Excretion is when something is exiting your body, yes, and it's coming out because it needs to. It's essentially waste, like sweat and just the different toxins from your body. That's what excretion is. Secretion, on the other hand, is the sebum production. Yes. And sebum is another form of protection for our skin, where it keeps our skin moisturized naturally. And some people have an overflow of sebum production, and that's where you find your clients that have like that oily skin, or the oily nail beds. And I'm sure you can probably speak to that as far as being a nail technician for how long you've been, and just those clients that have an overproduction of that sebum.
Especially when you deal a lot around the cuticles, like if a client, and we'll talk about this when we get to artificial enhancements, but if you have clients that have, like she said, sebum and oily skin, you got to make sure that you're really prepping, and this is why manicuring is important. You have to really prep the nail and really dehydrate it depending on what service you're doing. You want to make sure it's dehydrated, because even in between you being from the pinky on the left hand to the pointer finger on the right hand, that oil can start accumulating and be back up on the nail, and then you're wondering, why is it lifting? So knowing this is going to be key, and that is why the client consultation, and to give you an idea of what you're about to deal with, especially if it's a first-time client.
And for a nail technician, manicures are the basic, they're the foundation of every single service that you're going to do. And so what we want to talk about now are going to be the products that are going to be involved in that service.
There are, and if we just go ahead and go in the steps as far as the products, the first thing is going to be the cuticle remover. The cuticle remover, which many of them are acidic. So when you're doing a basic manicure with water, that is going to be helpful, because with it being acidic, you want to make sure that you do wash that off, because it can cause irritation.
Not only for your client, but for yourself.
Yes.
A lot of times we'll apply the cuticle remover and we'll just go ahead and, you know, rub it in with our own fingers. And if you're not wearing gloves, it's going to create that irritation between whatever fingers you use to rub it in. But usually it's your pointer finger and your thumb. Yeah. And over time, if you're doing several clients, you'll notice that tenderness, and it is because the cuticle remover is acidic. So you do want to be careful. There are ways that we're going to teach you about applying your cuticle remover in a safe way, to where you don't experience an allergic reaction or a contact dermatitis type of situation, as well as protecting your client too.
We have lotions, And there are lotions, like massage lotions are probably going to be the best because you can actually move through easier when you're doing the massage. But there's lotions that people realize that are water-based first that can cause a friction and uncomfortability with your clients if you're using. So you want to make sure that you're getting a lotion that is kind of a massage lotion that's going to make sure the flow is easier to go, and then kind of the ones that are transdermal, so they do sit into the skin and they last longer.
So we want to make sure that we're using quality products and not water-based products. Another product that we're going to talk about is oil. One of the biggest issues that we find in a lot of salons is that people are using oils that have products that people are actually allergic to.
Yes.
One of the ingredients that in oils a lot of times is going to be almond oil. And almond oil, a lot of times people are allergic to nuts, and including an almond oil in your cuticle oil can actually be like a contraindication.
Yeah, it could be a contraindication. Definitely a contraindication. And you always want to ask them, even if it's not in your client consultation form, you want to ask them if they're allergic to nuts, if you know that you have nuts in, you have any kind of nuts in your products. That's why we talked about you got to know what's in your products.
Yeah.
You can't don't just buy anything and then not know and put on your client and wonder why they're not coming back because you gave them an irritation.
For sure.
And with that being the case, fragrances and additives is also in your products that can cause, I know citrus. Citrus is definitely a big one. You have those people that are allergic to citrus. So making sure if you have seasonal kind of products, they do have citrus inside of them, and you don't want that. You want to have something that is probably going to be compatible to just as many of the people that you can possibly think of. We've covered the additives and the things that you should not have in your products, and to know the kind of high quality products you should have. We want to explain to you why manicures are important.
Manicures are important because they are, like we said, they're the foundational part of every service that you're going to do. They help with hand hygiene, making sure hands are clean and not transmitting pathogens, bacteria.
But you know, and they get rid of that dirt that people have underneath their
fingernails.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it prevents a client from coming and transmitting anything from one person to another, mainly from one person to you, because like we've said, you're that main person that everyone comes into contact with, and you want to make sure that you're always staying safe at all times, because people are coming to you and trusting you with their safety and making sure that everything has been disinfected.
Yes, they're also important because they are a form of self-care. Yes. It's like a selling technique. You definitely want to have an atmosphere for the client, but even though a client doesn't wear nails doesn't mean they cannot come and getting a manicure from you. And we're going to talk about different types of manicures, but they are a form of self-care. So encouraging individuals, your clients, friends or family to come in and get a manicure on top of anything else is just them taking care of themselves. And that's just important. I know to me, it's when I go get my nails done, regardless of whatever, it's relaxing. Like just being able to know I'm doing something for me, it's relaxing.
And the physical touch. The physical touch.
The physical touch. Yes, having that relationship with, I mean, there's nothing more personal than just holding someone's hand. Like that's really, really key in being able to build that relationship. And that's gonna be, yeah.
Absolutely. So who are manicures for?
Everyone, even animals. Okay, dogs for sure.
Dogs.
But manicures are for everyone, men, women, and children. Really. And you can start them off at any age. I remember when my kids were young, and I have girls, and I gave them manicures from the time I realized they had their little nails could put like a dot of polish on there, but just maintaining them so that they didn't bite them. I think that was one way that they really didn't want to bite their nails, because you did take care of them. So, and then men too. Men really need to get manicures, because I don't know, I'm a woman and I like a man with a nice looking hands. And I have a regular client who is a construction worker, and he gets manicures although he wears gloves, but he doesn't like when it snags or he has his cuticles or hangnails. So like, it is really, really, it's a great marketing technique and marketing skill to offer the manicure, to know that it is for anyone and anyone can sit at your table and get it done.
So what are we saying? We're saying that manicures help with so many different things on so many different levels. It does not matter who sits in your seat. Manicures help with preventing splitting skin, and that's from children all the way up. So you don't have to worry about a child sitting in your seat. You can provide that same service because children deal with splitting skin. Children deal with dry skin issues, and manicures help to provide them with that moisture that they need. And then if you're doing regular manicures, one of the best benefits is that it also helps with blood flow to the extremities.
And I encourage people to do manicures because it's going to help them with their prep time. Really pushing through those manicures, understanding those manicures is going to help cut down on that prep time. And when it's time for you to do enhancements, just imagine being able to prep in 15 minutes instead of 30 minutes.
So now let's talk about the types of manicures.
Ooh, I think people don't realize how many kind of manicures. Like, it is a lot of different manicures out there. Definitely. Oh, go ahead.
That's okay, because up to this point, we've only talked about the basic manicure. That's the one that we've mainly covered. So we have so many that we can offer.
Yeah, the basic manicure is like a water manicure, and depending on where you go, demographics, but the going rate is, I know at the school we start at 12, but it's anywhere between 25 up to 50. Just depends on where you go, and that's just a basic manicure, possibly with some fast dry polish or some performance kind of polish, but it could take you only 30 minutes to get done. So I think that's a really good price.
That's a really good price, and it's a really good starting point.
Yes.
And once you start at that point, it only gets better.
Only gets better.
Because you can also offer the male manicure. And a lot of times men do not know that they need these services, and so once you get them in your seat, it's going to be hard to get rid of them because they don't realize that they need to be pampered.
I think they like self-care more than
they do
any day. Like,
they do.
Yeah.
They don't like to say it, but they do.
They do.
Yeah.
Also, we have the dry manicure. The dry manicure is without the water, and that's really what we service here, is because a lot of the enhancements you don't want to put their hands in water because it can, hinder the application. But the dry manicure can be done a couple of different ways, but it's just no water. You can use, I don't know, can they really use the cuticle remover?
I would use it sparingly.
Sparingly?
I would use it sparingly, but a lot of times I just go without it depending on the service that I'm doing, to be honest.
Just have them wash their hands, and I think washing their hands and using the brush is going to help soften up the cuticle area to do the dry manicure.
For sure. And then we have the e-file manicure.
E-file manicure.
I love the e-file manicure.
Yes.
It is a dry prep service.
It is a dry prep service. And once you get it down, then it's going to just go faster as long as you have been well trained, preferably licensed, before you take out that e-file. And although we're going to talk about e-filing a little bit later, we do want to push, when you're dealing with the natural nail, we only use diamond bits, but that's going to be a little bit later. For
sure. Just safety-wise. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yes, we want to put that out there. We have the spa manicure. That's my favorite because there's so much that comes in the spa manicure. A paraffin is one of the most upcharged services that you can offer that is really, it works. I love the paraffin. It locks in even more moisture. From that, you have the scrubs that go along with the spa manicure. Hot oil. So the spa manicure, and they're offered in all spa salons, and that's why they average maybe about almost $100, and they massage up to the elbow, so it's really great.
For sure. And we have the specialty manicures. Now, specialty manicures for me are more focused on solving a problem for your client.
Yeah.
It's great for self-care, but it's more focused on solving a problem. And one of those problems are sometimes that, and I'm sure that you could probably speak to this as far as all the people that you know, when we talk about having calluses on the hands from working out.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yes.
Yes.
I like to work out, and you can once again use the e-file to help get rid of that because it's skin, and we talked about earlier. That's why manicurists should be estheticians, because you're dealing more with the skin, and you can upcharge, but definitely getting rid of the calluses, reducing even some of the thickness that comes around the fingertips on men, reducing that as well. So that's just, like she said, a specialty manicure that's going to fix a problem that's associated with their hands.
And then we have restoration manicures, which is going to be a process. It's not going to be one appointment and everything is done. You're going to want to come back for a series of manicures to make sure that your nails and your skin are in the best condition. Yeah. And when we talk about these type of services, We normally incorporate a really high quality product, which we'll talk about at a different time. Yes. But we normally incorporate really high quality products in these processes, and you book these services out over a couple of series of appointments, usually anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes 12, depending on the severity of the situation. And the last two are some of my favorite because I love doing nail enhancements. Dip manicures are one of my favorite services to do. Probably
not mine. Not mine.
It's not hers. And I think that's why she trained me on it so good, because one of the first things that I ever taught was a dip manicure. Yeah. I love doing dip manicures. I feel like the service goes really, really fast. But I also, one of the things that I learned about a dip manicure is that it is a great service to help your clients transition between different products. The last one that we're going to talk about on today is the gel manicure. This is a staple in fume-free salons. Yes. People love the gel manicure. It is a very basic service, but it can be so elegant for pretty much every situation.
And one of the most relaxing parts of the manicure is the massage. Yes. And knowing how to do a massage, knowing how to do the massage, it's not just a matter of just rubbing product into their hands and their arms. You really got to know how to manipulate and use a quality product to do the massage so that your client just is like...
When your client falls asleep in your chair, you know you're doing something right.
You do know you're doing something right. So why do we incorporate the massage though?
We incorporate massage because it is part of self-care. When you're doing manicures for people, this is a self-care service. So we don't want to end the service on, okay, I'm done with your nails, you can go. The reason why we incorporate massage is because we are promoting blood flow from the tips of the fingers up to the elbow. But even when we stop at the elbow, that blood flow still goes all the way back to the heart. And so our goal as a nail technician is to provide that relaxing atmosphere, knowing the pattern of the massage is going to be key to your client being absolutely relaxed.
And the first part is effleurage. You should know these because they are part of your state boards probably everywhere. Effleurage is the first one, and that is when you are rubbing in the product and it's like a light kind of massage, but you're setting the system of the massage that you're going to do and preparing your client for that relaxation, because you don't want to just go and start doing mess.
The second type is petrissage. Petrissage is where you're doing a little bit deeper of that muscle manipulation when you are going up and down in a rhythmic pattern on the arm or on the leg. You do want to make sure that the pressure is consistent, and you always ask your client.
Yes, that is very, like, we teach that, having that verbal confirmation. Is this pressure okay? And if they say yes, then I would always say, do you want more or less? Even though they say it's okay, I always ask, do you want more or less? Because I want them to enjoy that part of the service.
Correct.
Then the next one is tapotement, which is like spirit fingers. Tapotement is sort of close to the end. And Coach John was talking about friction, but tapotement is like you just really want to go lightly on it and like going back over their hands and, well, their arms. And sometimes if they have any kind of blood flow issues, you might not even use petrissage. You just might use tapotement, and tapotement can be enough for the massage that they're getting.
Absolutely. And the last one is friction. Friction is like wringing out a towel, but you're not squeezing super hard. No. You always, like Coach Angela said, you ask them if the pressure is enough, and you're taking your hands and you're going in opposite directions. Slowly down. And up. Slowly up and down.
Slowly up and down. And none of this karate chopping stuff. Like that's not friction. We're not.
We are nail technicians that incorporate massage techniques into our services.
But before we even get to the massage part, when we think about the products that we use, we want to, I think you talked about using them a little bit sparingly, because clients can have a level of contact dermatitis depending on what it is that they're using, and then they're coming in and getting more products on. So let's tell them about contact dermatitis.
Contact dermatitis is a scary situation. I'm just going to be honest. Just picture it. Your client comes in, they're perfectly fine. in the middle of the service, they all of a sudden start developing a rash on their neck or their chest, or they start itching on their stomach. And you might end up freezing because you don't know what to do.
Yes.
Contact dermatitis is a situation where a client has come into contact with a product, and the best way to put it is that their skin just does not agree.
It. Yes, it's rejecting it. So with and you don't know that, and you may ask, and the first thing you don't want to do is don't spray alcohol. Have them go wash their hands and their arms off. Like clean their whole self, clean all of the skin off, and then don't put anything else on.
Do not put anything else on.
Just finish your service with only the nails.
Finish the nails, and then you definitely want to tell them to consult with a physician, because the last thing that you want to happen is for this to become an internalized situation and they don't seek any professional help just because you didn't tell them to. We never want to downplay the seriousness of a client experiencing any type of episode based on a product that you put on their skin. So one of the things that happens, or that should happen before your service, is asking your client what type of shape they would like their nails to be in for the service.
Yeah.
When you are thinking about the shape though, you do want to think about a shape that complements their hands, because sometimes a client will tell you, well, what do you recommend? And you always want to look at the shape of their fingers if they're looking for something natural. Remember, we're talking about a natural nail. We're not talking about enhancements right now. So when you're thinking about the natural nail, you have to consider those shapes that, you know, conform to the client's fingers.
So asking though, you can ask them, and although they may ask you, they may not know, but then as a professional, you should be able to make a judgment based on what you see and the conversation you're having. But then of course, get that confirmation from them that it's okay. And what I normally do is like, I'll foul it and shape it and then ask them, does that look okay? And do they agree with it? Because at the end of the day, if they, like, I want my nails as almond,
client satisfaction is important.
You just gotta give them that almond and be like, don't tell nobody I did. No. And I don't want to say lastly,
but one of the most important things is, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but we're going to talk about reinforcing the cuticle care. A lot of people, what is the one thing that people do when it comes to the cuticle and what they mistake it for?
They mistake it for the eponychium, which if you nip the eponychium, you are opening them up to more possibilities of infection.
Yes, the eponychium and the cuticle are two completely different parts of the body, and they have two different purposes. And the cuticle is actually attached to the nail plate.
But the eponychium is
attached to the skin.
Attached to the skin. So imagine like if you're using your nippers and it's not nipping and you have to pull, you're probably pulling some skin, and you need to really know what the difference is between a cuticle and the eponychium. And that's another question to ask. Do you want your cuticles pushed back and nipped, or just pushed back? Because some clients just want them pushed back. So you need to know how to use your buffer. And don't worry, we're going to teach you all of that here at BGM. Now that we've given you all of this fabulous information on manicuring, which is the foundation of all nail services, tell us in the comments your takeaways.